at least from my own perception, at least from how I, felt and connected with your music, there was always a significant difference in the way you deliver, portray, and express your emotions. Even through the lyrics, the things you sang, the things you mentioned, the words all hit me in a entirely different way than a regular, this is a lyric to a song, so it just goes with, with the track. But when you were singing your lyrics, it really hit me. I really could understand them, and even from always and greater than, less than, and how could you, and all of these things, I could just I guess experience what you've been singing about. And I'm curious to hear whether this is some natural, genuine talent of yours to sort of encapsulate your emotions and portray them into words, or this is more of a quality that you've maybe developed through the years?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. I think I asked Eminem one time. Wow. I was at the MTV Video Music Awards, and I had my son Cody with me, and I was taking him around, introducing him to different people, and I introduced him to Eminem, and I asked him, I said, how did you get? I said, what is your advice on writing lyrics? I said, how did you get so good at writing lyrics? And like you said, portraying your emotions right then and there. Yeah. And he said, by writing lyrics. He said, I constantly write lyrics. He said, I have stacks of notebooks at home that nobody will ever hear, that are he said that was just me sharpening my sword. It's like a blacksmith when they sharpen an axe or when they sharpen a sword, they spend time with that sword and they sharpen it until it can slice through paper. And that's the same with lyrics. Is I think when you continually write lyrics, you just get better and better and better and better. And your lyrical sword gets sharper and sharper and sharper. And like they say, the power of the tongue is a lethal weapon. You know what I mean? It can bring love, it can bring joy, and it can also bring death and destruction. With the words we choose to speak, life is either given or taken away. And I think with my words, I've always tried to give life and give love and give honor and respect. I definitely went down some dark, some dark alleys with some of my lyrics when I was going through some bad times in my life. But I have always had the ability to, and I think this is a God-given talent, is I've always had the ability to portray my emotions that I'm feeling at that moment. Like you said, the song How Could You I wrote it about my guitar player was going through a divorce with his wife, and just the things that happened, and seeing my brother hurt, and seeing him so heartbroken, and seeing how it, just destroyed his heart, and just smashed it into a million pieces. That hit my heart, and that's what I wrote How Could You about. I was just like, how could this person do these things to somebody that they said they loved and they were with for so long? And people do things when they're hurt, and and then you throw drugs and alcohol in the mix, and things get really crazy. But I've always had that gift, I call it, to portray exactly what's going on in my life at that time. And I've been lucky and blessed enough that people latch on to that. Like Always, you mentioned Always.
Yeah.
I wrote that about this. I was dating this girl before I met my wife, and her sister was dating a guy that ended up beating her up. And so I was just, and I was close with this girl's sister, and I, ended up calling the guy up, and I was like, dude, you better not ever put your hands on her again. And after that phone call, and just seeing how hurt she was physically and mentally and spiritually and all these things, that's when I wrote Always.
Wow.
I just totally felt, I like I said, I can't help but have a chain going from my heart to your heart. And I just, in 5 minutes, I wrote, I hear a voice say, don't be so blind. You know what I mean? And it just came out in like 5 minutes. All the good ones are like 5 minutes.
Wow, this is so fascinating to hear, honestly. Me and my girlfriend's absolutely favorite song is Always. This is what we always blast everywhere. It's just such a, such a surreal moment just to hear you explaining that. Can I ask you about the influence behind another song? Because it's one that is, very close to me. And I've mentioned it as well, Greater Than, Less Than.
I love that song.
There was always such an ambience behind this track in a very specific way about me, and it's always been fascinating to me. So I'm so interested to hear what you would say about that.
Well, that was a really interesting time, and pretty much the song that started it all with Saliva, because I was in a band before Saliva called Blackbone, and we toured throughout the early 90s all the way up to about 1995, I think, or early 96. And that band sort of just blew up in our face, and we weren't getting along, and there were some fights, and I was real depressed. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I knew I was going to have to start over again. And I was riding home, and I came up with the band name Saliva. I was like a huge Nirvana fan. And I was like, I got to come up with a band name that's like a household word, like Nirvana. And I was just sitting thinking, and I was like, what about Saliva? Saliva, Nirvana, Saliva. I thought it was a good 3-syllable word. It was already a household word, and it was kind of weird and kooky. I thought people would be, kind of freaked out by that name. And so I got home, and the band broke up. And like I said, I was going through just a horrible depression. I locked myself in my bedroom at my mother's house. Was still living with my mom. I think I was 24 and 24, 25. And I just locked myself in my bedroom and picked up the guitar. And the first song that came out was Greater Than, Less Than.
Wow.
And I just felt that there was this greatness that was ahead of me that I couldn't touch. And there was like a thin veil in front of me that didn't allow me to touch it, but I knew it was there. And that's just exactly how I felt about my life. I felt like I was greater than in some aspects because I had this gift of talent and the gift of enjoying the stage and loving performing for the fans and the ability to write lyrics and portray how I felt. And when, and then I wrote the less than part about feeling not good enough, feeling like I would never make it to the precipice that I wanted to go to, and feeling like giving up and feeling like I just fall off the horse every time. But after I wrote that song, I was like, I can do this. I can do this. And it made me pick myself up off the ground and dust myself off and focus my energy on climbing out of the hole that I was in of having to start over with a new band and having to, just reset my whole life. And I found that there is a dignity and a freedom in starting over. There is something that, I don't know, it's like it refreshes and renews us.
It's very rejuvenating. Yeah, it's like
absolutely. And that's exactly what I felt, was rejuvenated, and there was just such a freedom I felt in starting over at song number 1. And song number 1 was Greater Than, Less Than.